the cloud. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining on such a beautiful night. And I think we're good enough to start. We're going to do two parts, the waste and water and debris removal, and have some conversation about how that can be incorporated in our Hub Captain book and for messaging. And then I've got a demographics follow-up, and there may be prizes. So, oops, turn down the phone. That's always Okanagan County telling me what's going on COVID-wise on the other part of the state. So, all right, so I'm going to share my screen. Not that one, this one. Nope, not that one. Hang on. That's not what we want. It's one of those nights.
Yep.
Yep.
So this is all in context of an earthquake?
Yeah.
Any major disruption of services from the Seattle Public Utilities, water, sewer, trash collection, that sort of thing.
Okay. I'm having one of those things where can you see my screen?
Not now.
No, you're not sharing.
Not yet, yeah.
Yeah, I'm back to, there you go. There's your screen
It's
share.
trying.
Yeah, there we go. What happens is I have so many windows open because I got so much going on tonight. It was way off on the next, see more. So
It's just blacked out though. I don't see any content.
All I see is, all I see is a blank screen.
Yeah, it says Cindy Barker is started screen sharing, but there's nothing on it.
I know. Now I'm trying. Now it says I'm paused and I'm trying to resume. Oh God, I hate this.
Are you having enough fun yet?
Well, let's start over.
You don't have it memorized?
Well, I do, but it's a lot of talking. And what I can't figure out is it says my screen sharing is paused and I don't have any options to resume it.
Yeah.
Well, let's go.
Can't help you here.
Yeah, no. Resume share.
Hey, Cindy.
Yeah.
If you log out, will it take the whole conference down?
She can pass
She can
off,
assign another.
She can sign like Matt to be the organizer for a while and let her log out and come back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I knew how to do that.
Just leave meeting.
You go to participants and
Yep, I got it. Okay. So Matt,
yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
well, I
Yes,
hope
I'm the host
that
now.
happened. Well, we're all still here, so I guess
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah,
and
I'm
we're
the host now.
good.
all right, we can talk about Cindy in the private.
Mhm.
She's
Yeah.
got hair.
We can gossip.
Yep.
I'm talking about Zoom lessons.
Or maybe, Matt, you could have us talk about anything you want. You're the host, right?
There you go.
Oh, no. We're not talking about Motor Royal.
Yeah, Cindy and I had a conversation with Chad from SPU, a little bit more than hour-long discussions with him about SPU's planning and how they've got different phases of what they're going to do, like immediately afterwards, and then ramping up to providing more and more services as their capabilities and access become expand. And that is a lot of what we're going to discuss tonight. Oh, there she is.
Yep.
She's back.
Okay.
yeah, so
So
Matt
their
has,
phased response.
Matt has to let me share now.
Matt.
I have to let you.
There.
I think anybody can share, but yeah.
No, the
All right.
host has to let her, yeah,
Yeah.
No, you have to pass it back to her.
yeah.
Okay, I'm the host now. Okay.
Oh, got that. Yeah.
In our work meetings, anybody can share.
How you're the host, you have cookies for us?
I have prizes. I got that much.
Yeah, she'll give you computer cookies anytime.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. It's good.
Thank
We're
you.
in.
Yay.
Okay. Wait. Now I got to re-record.
It's
Yeah.
recording still.
Okay. All right.
Probably
You
just
didn't
loud.
get all the
That's-
things I said.
Sorry for everybody who's kind of had to deal with the mess here. So we're starting with water. So we did learn some, Chad shared a lot of really good stuff with us when he met with us, a lot of details about the water system and how that's going to work. And I could hear someone, so if you're not talking, go on mute, please. And so we talked through the variety of responses because he really focused about the system and the system metrics and kind of their overall plan, but it wasn't enough detail where I thought hub captains could easily predict or at least, be thinking about what might be. So he was very clear with us about what the priorities of water uses are going to be. He mentioned this a little bit, but I think putting this in our hub captain books is going to be good. And so if any of this isn't clear when we get through it, give us input, and Jack and I'll, incorporate it into his write-up. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, this is how it is. So if, all we can do is make it clearer or something like that. Or if there is something where somebody has a question we didn't think to ask, we can go back to chat about that.
Agreed.
So the existing water that is available, whether it's in an open reservoir or in a pipe, its first priority is to public safety. It's the fire department's needs because they're lead in the earthquake response, and all the way down to a neighborhood could have its water turned off because there may be saturation going on and some broken water pipes are still flooding an area and they want to turn it off to avoid landslides. So, we hadn't really thought about that kind of an example, but there's all sorts of reasons why you might not have water, even if the pipes are still good. And then when they start to restore the flow through the pipes, it will be still around for firefighting. And again, if they have to divert it from some neighborhoods to get it to critically threatened other neighborhoods, that's what they're going to do. And then the third priority use is for critical customers. And we've always understood that for the hospitals, but he gave a couple more examples. For example, if the responders need water, especially if they've got command centers that they're trying to make sure that the responders are being hydrated, those kind of critical uses. And then when he talked about the general population, there's probably two possible phases. There may be water in the pipes and that water needs to get treated because they have not turned back on their water sanitation, cleaning system. So the messaging might come out that there's water in the pipes that needs the treatment. And then there is the final phase where they get the treated water, the high quality water up and flowing. So that's the steps to go through for restoration. And then we talked about, so if there is no water for any one of those, priority reasons is sucked it out of your neighborhood, what are the possibilities? So we went back through a couple of options, and we have a new option that we really hadn't talked about before. The first one, the water bladder, which he also calls a blivet, that's those big pillow-like looking things that they can fill with, hundreds of gallons of water. But there are only 6 in the city. And in any one given time, maybe only 4 or 5 of them are actually working because they depend on some mechanical equipment that may not be operational. And so as he described to us before, those water bladders take a few days to locate, transport, fill, and because they have to be run by city staff, they need, I will double check this number, but I looked through my notes and he said we need about 80 staff to run one. And that's the whole cycle of fill it and fill the community's bottles and keep the line straight and all that stuff. So it would be a minimum of 2 days, more like 3 or 4 before all the water bladders were distributed out in the city. And again, with only 6 in the whole city and you know, if all the water pipes are broken, you know, the priority needs, you know, the hospital zone might get 2 of those blivets. So you never know.
Yeah.
The other possibility that came up new was we asked if the fire hydrants are still working, if there's waters in the pipe, you know, is there any way to tap, you know, like you see pictures in New York in the summer, you know, turn on the water hydrant. And there's a thing called a water hydrant meters. And he said, well, you know, yeah, we could drop, you know, one of those off. And, you know, you could use it like a community village well where everybody comes there and fills their bottle, and you know, you and the community could manage that. But we would have to coordinate that through the fire department, you know, that we wouldn't be compromising the water source in a potentially high-risk area. And there aren't a ton of those. So it's not like we can think about, you know, there's going to be one in every neighborhood. So he didn't give us an actual number, and that was just an idea floated, and we probably are going to have to get a little more details about it. But it is one of those tools to put in our bag of, hey, let's be thinking about, you know, if we had to put up, if we could get our hands on a water hydrant meter, where would we put it? And what I also don't know is whether or not the fire department hands those out or SPU hands those out. So that's a question.
I think that's going to be SPU controlled.
Okay. Well, it's like, who has them and how would we get our hands on them, you know, after a disaster?
Yep.
And then we had talked, and everybody's familiar with, you know, if they can get a community pointed distribution up and running, they have places where they plan to do those, you know, depending on what happens and where. And that is another one of those, like shelters, it will take several days to get it up and running. But again, it's where we can at least be looking for them to come up and direct people to get to them. And then the last thing that we talked to him about with water was we went back through some of the options we had talked about, just to make sure that if we create like a self-help poster or messaging around a couple of things that are commonly available for people, you know, what's the right messaging? And so when we asked about rain barrels, you know, like the look of disgust on his face was really good. And it was like, most of us have rain barrels that sit and we never dump them, and you know, maybe we use them in the summer, but we usually forget about them, and they're really nasty. So it's like boil it, boil it, boil it. And if you can't boil water, use the maximum amount of bleach and make sure you're really doing a good sterilization job. And we had a discussion about lake water, and you know, that is just the message on lake water is don't do it, because there are so many
Lakes, rivers, streams. If you see a magical seep of water pop up in your street, all of those things.
Yep. They'll probably be contaminated with things that you can't decontaminate with. He said also that they would be out posting the lake shores and stuff, but it's going to take them a couple days to get out and do that. So was there a question?
What about digging wells? Is that an option anywhere?
Digging wells is a risk, because what you don't know is if the water is coming from an untreated sewer pipe that's filling your nicely dug well. So there's been some discussion about, can we build filtration systems? But, you know, and it's kind of one of those, you can, if you've got a stream that, you know, like I have in my rockery, I've got a year-round water seep, and we know it's a water seep. And so I might try digging that, but if there's all of a sudden miraculously water where there wasn't before, that's probably going to be a sewer pipe.
Well, I mean, it could also be a water pipe too, but you'll never know.
Yeah.
Cindy, I got a question. With lake water, even if you filter and purify both, they say it's too nasty that you can't successfully do that.
What he's worried about is fuel contaminants, the things that filters don't remove, and bleach may not, you know, you can't compensate for the hazardous material in gasoline.
Chemical
But
components.
there's so many
biological.
things that you could have that are runoff. It's highly possible that if there's a widespread power failure, that the sewage treatment plants will not be operating, and you know, there's an overflow pipe that pumps right into Lake Union. You know, if the sewer system shuts down and, you know, all the operable things in it shut down, then that thing opens up, and all of that raw stuff just goes right into the water. And then, that kind of thing is prevalent around around a number of different areas. That's part of the reason you don't know what kind of runoff is going to be. If it's a storm situation, you could have some tank of some unknown material that ruptures, and then the rainwater carries it into the sewer drain, into the street drain, which takes it right straight to a body of water. There's so many opportunities for problems that it's just advised not to use those things. Unless you're at the source, like Cindy was talking about. If you're at the source of a seep that for years, then you're probably okay. But otherwise, larger bodies of water, it's really inadvisable.
Yeah, not only the chemical, but after day 2, sewer is kind of going to be everywhere in a lot of ways. And if you ever watch that Naked and Afraid TV show where they send people out into the jungles, and they're, one of them always goes, well, I don't know, I dug this little hand well and it looks good and I'm going to drink it. And then you watch them have diarrhea for the next 3 days. So, you could tell your neighbor you drink it and I'll watch and see what happens. So, and then the last piece on there is uncovered reservoirs. We just wanted to double check. There's 2 reservoirs left that have not been lidded in the city. One's in the Roosevelt neighborhood and the other one is up at Volunteer Park. And those are fenced. Those will be protected. Those are intended for crisis management and public safety. So the hub captains in those neighborhoods do not promote that people are going to be able to go dip their buckets in those, because they'll probably have guards around them. So that was kind of the water stuff. That, we should be able to get that messaging once we get a couple of clarifications around that, and make that so it's easily postable. And then I'll be showing you what Jack had written up after this part of the slideshow, after the debris.
Well, so to me, the takeaway from this is that we all have to have 3 or 4 days worth of water. And then after that, the city, hopefully, cross my fingers, will have distribution systems set up. But really before that, that's why we're all saving, that's why we're all keeping water in our houses and stuff.
The city's recommendation for storing anything, the disaster preparedness, is a gallon of water per day per person.
Per person,
for
that's
2
right.
weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah. But yeah.
Because
what we can say to our neighbors is there isn't going to be anything from the city for the first few days. You have to have 2 weeks worth of water. I think that's the simple message. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
4 days, no way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
The message
I'm
to
just
your
saying
neighbors should be 2 weeks. That's the city's guidance. That's the disaster preparedness guidance. And in reality, if we're lucky for the city to start dispensing stuff in 2 or 3 or 4 days, it's not going to be enough for the entire population of the city. So the more prepared you and your neighbors are, the less reliant you're going to be on disaster response by official services, which is going to take time.
Yes.
And just for clarification, I do disaster preparedness presentations for the city of Seattle, as does Cheryl Dyer, as does Ann Forrest. This is the guidance the city is providing.
when we get to the demographic stuff, you'll also see that when they provide water, based on the demographics of your neighborhood, you may be the last one in the world they're going to think of. Cheryl Dyer, you better get ready for this one, where you have low density and, your economics are good and high likelihood that your buildings survive. That water's going someplace else, and you're going to be last in line. So don't take a chance. Tell people it's 2 weeks. Okay, so now we're going to move to a little more complicated, and sometimes I think I make this more complicated than it is, and so once I get this out of my system, we can make this simple for our people. We learned that debris removal is not as simple as pick it up, make it go away. The city cannot handle all the debris removal that's going to come out of this, and we'll go through the categories of what it is. but they will depend on being able to use FEMA funds to help hire people to get this stuff moved away. And FEMA has very strict contracting guidelines that you have to have this stuff sorted and disposed of, because if you don't sort it correctly, you won't get reimbursed. So the city is highly motivated to make sure that, they follow the guidelines so they can get the money back so that they can actually restore the city as quickly as possible. And if we can help them with that sorting guidance, that is going to go a long ways to resolving the frustration of what's happened in other cities where the contracting company comes along and they look at your pile in front of your house and they go, nope, mixed up. We can't pick it up. It's illegal for us to pick up. And
You
it's
threw that refrigerator in with your and dishwasher in with all of that building, the concrete and pieces of 2x4 and shingles and stuff. Nope, we're passing that up.
Yeah. So this, as we listen to this, it's like, how are we going to make this easy for people without them going, oh, bullshit, like we have enough problems with people who won't even wear a mask, just imagine what it's going to be like asking people to, please, please do a little bit of help here to help the city get back, on the path of recovery. So there are 5 categories and we're going to kind of focus on 2 of them, but we'll, one is the inert debris that's going to come down. That's the facades that come down. That's the building debris and structure stuff that ends up in the street that is going to get shoved to the side. Then we have, as we always had to do, hazardous materials, all the stuff that, has to be separated out and disposed of separately. I kind of wanted to bypass large appliances, but that really, as Jack pointed out, is going to be a problem because when your meat rots, like let's say you go to a park for 2 days and you finally get back home and, those smell pretty bad. And you're going to want to haul those out and put them on the side of the street. So those have to be separated. So anything that's damaged by the event can be picked up. This is not the time to get rid of the hot tub that you don't like anymore. But, there's going to be some, large things. And literally, I have driven by houses in, I've done in both New Orleans and Florida, where it was multiple years after the earthquake, and you look at the pile and go, what's that stuff sitting in front of that house? Well, it's still the debris from, a several-year-old event that just wasn't picked up. And then everybody went, well, oh, well. The event-generated debris, this is going to be the trees that fall down, the limbs and branches. This is often more around hurricanes and windstorms, but it's kind of like that. Didn't come from you, but it's landed up in your yard. And then the last one is electronic waste, and that is usually not going to, your stereo could have fallen and been totally smashed, and that's an earthquake example. A lot of this is more around stuff that got flooded and is destroyed, and that has to be separated out. And this also applies to if you just got tired of the stuff and you want to take it to the dump, these are the sort of sorting you're going to have to do before you'll be able to throw it away in one of the stations. So just recognize 5 different categories. So can you imagine trying to give instructions to people to have nice, tidy 5 little things? Because what will happen first is you get your first pile of debris because the city comes and gives it to you, and it is just a factor of we're trying to clear the roads so that cars can get through, responders can get through, transit can get restored, and they will just come through and they call it cut and toss. Cut it out, cut it up, get it off the road. It's going to end up on your parking strip and possibly the sidewalk. So
There'll be trees and, telephone poles and miscellaneous wires that are de-energized and, bricks, and it depends upon where you are. It could be a whole lot of stuff or it could be very few things.
Yeah. And then the problem is, those, they're not going to stop and sort it then. It's just going to end up on the side of the road. And then estimators will come in and they will kind of drive the streets and they'll be estimating it so that they can get their contracts done. But it still has to get somehow sorted. And if we can give that as something for people to do who are like, I want to help, but there's nothing to do. It's like, go get the sidewalks cleared. Make sure the street's cleared. And the sidewalk messaging, we talked to them about that. That's going to be very similar to the snowstorm stuff. You have people with mobility problems, people who are now having to walk to the stores. Make sure that they can get in and out of the neighborhoods through the sidewalks. And what this also applies to is, it's multifamily too. They're gonna, this debris is gonna be stacked up in front of apartments. So there will not be a, apartment manager who's on top of this. They're probably at their home wherever they actually really live and not ever gonna show up at this apartment. So we'll have to be help messaging. There's a chat that just went on. So if somebody's picking up something that we need to say, just say it.
What are sidewalks?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I think it was a joke.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I can have the screen and I can have you, but I can't have the chat. It's almost too much.
I'll check it for you.
Okay. And then the other complicating thing is, so you might have debris in front of your house that you may have dragged out yourself, or it may have been given to you by the city and it's still sitting there. But now we're on day 3 and you've got a lot of poop building up. So we got on our sanitation posters, like how to build a bucket, how to take the bag out, how to tie the bag up, how to put it in a container. And that was where we stopped. So we have to finish the cycle. And we had a long conversation with them about, so we're going to put them in our garbage cans and you're going to tell us when you're going to come pick them up, or how is that going to work? So their current plan is that the SBU crews are going to be the ones who start immediately going around and picking up the waste and the rotting food, because those are the public safety issues. And then outside crews who they contract are going to come in and start doing the debris removal. So, what we probably should be telling people is, we told you to put your human waste in a can, put that can where if you're not home or you're not around when the crews come by, they can see the label on it and go, we're taking it. And so, we asked them about weight limits. It's like, don't worry about it. Just get it in a container that animals won't get at and spread disease, label it so that the crews know what's coming up. And even if you have to start using Rubbermaid containers, they will dump it. But, getting it out on that sidewalk so that they can be picked up and you're not going, well, I just saw the garbage can go by and I had the poo thing in the garage and now they're not coming for another week. Oh, great. And then the discussion.
You could repurpose some of your other containers, like if you've got a yard waste container or a recycling container, you could repurpose that for collection of those materials, just as long as you label it, just slap a piece of duct tape or something on there with a Sharpie and mark it for what it is. You can do that.
Yep. And that leads into, we have 2 kinds of multifamily complexes. So we also have to think about how we talk to them. There are ones that have done the townhomes. There's 30 townhomes packed onto a 2 single family lot. And I have seen sidewalks where when it's recycle day, there's garbage, recycle, and compost all out on a sidewalk, and there's 30 containers literally in just this sidewalk stretch, and that's going to be on top of what else might have been shoved onto the sidewalk. So I think the messaging, and this is where we need help on how would we articulate this. If you're in a multifamily, start with 1 or 2 cans that are labeled human waste, fill those up, then bring another one out. Don't put 30, compost bins out and everybody filling up a little bit out of each one. Recognize that you might be collecting this for a week and do it smartly. That led us to the question of, what's the billing going to be like? And Chad's like, we're not billing. There's going to be billing by can during a recovery event. So if we get asked that, at least we can say that.
Cindy,
yeah, go ahead.
this is Margaret. What about in a multifamily where we just have large dumpsters?
That's the next one. So,
all right.
So he said probably what we should message is designate the dumpster that is the human waste, the rotting foods, the public safety, sanitation concerns, and then, try to keep your recycle from going out on the sidewalk as long as you can, because that doesn't, go bad. But designate one if at all possible. But definitely don't mix, don't take the structural debris and dump it in your dumpster because you're getting it out of the way and then have human waste in it. That'll cause that, hey, it's mixed waste you know, we may not pick this up. So that's, you know,
It's going to require coordination within the facility to, you know, that everybody understands that. And then you get to the point about the chutes.
yeah, go ahead and do that now.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
No,
You're
well,
on
I wasn't actually going to do that. That's more in the book, you know, but
Right.
if you live in one of those apartments that has the, you know, waste chute, Chad's going like, tell them not to put human waste in bags and send it 15 stories. Because it'll be a mess. So this is actually a really good conversation piece for when you're doing preparedness, talking to multifamily units, you know, make them think about this ahead of time. But the
If
rules
they've got
are,
they're a special case, then they, you know, they really need to think about it differently than single family homes.
yes, but the rules are don't mix the waste, you know, protect the human waste and rotting foods from animals, and, you know, be ready for it to be picked up without much warning. So we talked to him about, you know, we can only do so much. You know, if the city has special instructions, that should be some of the first messages that come out through our ACS, you know, messaging systems, or that go out over the Cairo radio, you know, help with getting that messaging out. Don't leave it just for us to try and convey this really complex message to people who are more like worried about, am I going to eat to live, than I'm going to deal with the rotten steak later, you know. So he took that on. That was, in fact, I think that is the next thing that he's working on. I saw a chat. Anything I need to pay attention to?
Oh, that was earlier. I don't see anything
Okay.
new.
Okay. So that is the first thing that Chad's working on, is, you know, the messaging that they could create and have standing ready to pass out. And so Mark and ACS, these are some new fun injects, you know, don't dump your poop down 15 stories, you know. We'll give those ACS guys something to play with.
One thing, Cindy, on the poop, remember we talked about where it should not go. And that is, you know, you shouldn't open up a sewer lid.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
You shouldn't, you know, not down the street drain, you
Right.
know, don't bury it.
Right.
It really needs to be collected and held. Urine is a different thing. You know, the liquid part is a different deal. But yeah, there's a whole lot of really bad things could happen if people continue to use you know, try to flush stuff down their toilets or dump it into the drain system.
Jack's got that in the booklet I'll show you next. So yeah, and that's the sort of stuff that needs to go up on our quick and easy messaging thing.
Yeah.
The second thing he's working on is more details, what we can think about with the hydrants, you know, yes, no, maybe, you know, like the first time he talked to us, we didn't know there was only 6 bladders in the whole city. And so if he comes back and he says, and there's only 6 water meters that we're willing to give out, you know, at least you could start going, well, then we're going to be talking about working on water as a sector rather than just me and my 2 closest hubs. So one of the other things that came up was when we were talking about if water is flowing in the pipes, but people can't boil the water, and, you know, they've tapped out what they had stored, and we're all having to go to bleach, there's not going to be any bleach to be had. You know, it's going to be like the toilet paper repeat. And so we asked if bleach was on their list of priority items to get, because water's one of the few things we need to live. And so they had not considered that. So he's going to go talk to the Fleets and FAS, Facilities and Administration Department, and see, you know, how they would do that. We were not suggesting that they store bleach, but you know, it become a commodity that gets city priority for distribution. And then the last thing was kind of important. I mean, we've been working with Chad so that we can understand his plan, you know, because we sort of assume we're going to have to work in either a vacuum or a one-way system where we're down at working at our hubs, and we might get asked for situation awareness, but really the information flow, you know, that we practice right now, you know, tends to come from the city out. And that's really important that we get that messaging out. But he said, you know, we're just going to be at this, you know, in my department, we're going to be on autopilot. We're going to be executing the plan. And if there is something we should know critical something, you know, use your systems, use ACS to get that message back to us. So that was nice to hear it. I mean, we should get a little more clarification about, you know, like I'm going, well, my poop bucket's overflowing. Should I call you? You know, like what is the level of, you know, tell us, you know, is it that the water we thought was all flowing is now making everybody puke, you know, or that sort of stuff. So that was really good to hear.
Cindy, we'll get some, you know, how we use Charlie Mike 5 and 4 for signal strength. We'll have a PB, a poop bucket scale too. So we can report on things.
Poop bucket criticality indicator.
Yeah.
PB 4 and 5 are not good things.
Yeah. So that was really cool. So you can see I did this data dump. It's complicated, and we have to either, I don't want to get in the business of making new posters, but you know, because until we get our fundraising plan in place, but we do need to get this message sorted out.
Another quick question, Cindy.
Uh-huh.
If we do not sharing, if we do not have water flowing through our normal pipes, what are the odds that there will be water flowing to fire hydrants?
They are usually on the same line.
Yeah.
They use the same distribution system. So if it's in the neighborhood, it's going to be your house. So they're not separate.
So the water meter thing for the hydrants isn't going to be of great value if you don't have water in the neighborhood anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, right. I mean,
But you can tap into it though. It's a way to tap.
but there
into
could
it.
be people who are 5 blocks over that don't have water that could come to you. You know, that's why I think it's a sector kind of like mentality thinking.
And you know, the other thing to remember that they're on, a lot of them are, the hydrants are on the mains. They're going to get preserved those first, and then there's feeders. So, you know, it's a strategy. It's a, you know, but they do prioritize for fire service. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm not going to, this is what, so Anne, who did all the work on the Hub Captain book, is checking with us to make sure that what we've already got in here doesn't conflict with what's already in the educator's book. But this is what Jack has written to start to put in the educator's book that covers everything that I was just talking about, plus a little bit of extra detail. So as soon as Jack and Ann and I are happy with, you know, and get the last answers from Chad, we'll send this out to everybody. And then this is the stuff that we have to figure out what are we going to put in the Hub Captain book, in your appendix in the Hub Captain book, that will help you with the, when do you message, how do you message, those sort of things.
Well, the idea is for the hub captains to have some basic information so that, you know, when these kind of questions come up, you know, from the public after an event or, you know, during an event, that, you know, they'll have some knowledge about what the city plan is and what can be expected in the future and, you know, at the present.
Right. So that, any more questions on our Seattle Public Utilities little tour?
Cindy, this is kind of in the weeds, but can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Portland worked on a system where their trash trucks aren't compacting the poop so much that it's flowing out of the truck onto the streets.
That was my
curious.
point when we had the discussion.
Yeah. Just curious, where is Seattle with that kind of thinking?
I don't know that he answered us.
We asked
Okay.
we asked Chad about that, and I said that he should contact the contractors that would be delegated that responsibility for poop pickup and or human waste pickup, and make sure that, you know, they had the facilities to do it without the issue of, like you were talking about,
freezing.
compaction and leakage and, you know, bags splitting and blah, blah, blah. And that, I think, is one of the things that still need to be checked. He needs to check with their contractor that, you know, they are renegotiating the contract with right now, and make sure that issue is in their minds when it comes
Okay.
to
Yeah.
activation.
Yeah, as long as it's on their
I have a
radar.
question.
The other thing that, the other little element about this is I'm in contact with a guy whose job is to be the FEMA waste monitor. So they're not the company that removes the stuff. They're the company that has the oversight of how the city is implementing the FEMA contracts. You know, are they separating and all that? So he's looking around for any messaging that he's seen put out on these topics about sorting and proper disposal of stuff. And so we might be able to get some graphic aids or something that we can use. And then, so Jack, I wrote down to verify with Chad that he has had that specific conversation about poop compaction. And yes,
Yep.
Seattle is not gonna, you know, leave trails of brown down the street, so.
Right. Frank, did you have a question?
Yeah, one of my questions is, because I'm not up to speed on what the SNAP training is doing now, given the public health issue with human waste and rotting foods, is that included in the SNAP presentation? Or will
When
it
I
be?
teach, it most certainly is. I go over twin bucket toilets.
Okay,
Yeah, I do
How about
mention the
Carl?
twin bucket toilets, but it's not an in-depth discussion in any form.
Yeah, the city's OEM office hasn't really fully embraced it yet.
Embrace poop.
Yeah.
Okay,
they've
well,
not
what in
embraced
the
it.
Seattle's SPU's trifold, they don't mention like in the SNAP and in our stuff, they don't mention, you know, pee and poop separate buckets or
Yeah.
you know, anything about adding dewatering agents. They just say, you know, if you need to put a plastic bag in your toilet, then and you know, gather it up that way. And yeah,
Well,
it what we have is considerably more evolved.
Sophisticated. Yeah.
Yeah, you
So-
do, but it is mentioned, but I'll also say the city right now is in the process of basically a total rewrite of the public presentations.
So
And
fingers crossed.
we haven't seen the result of what that's going to be come out yet. They're also trying to figure out how we can do these presentations because we're not doing them in person. So that's a work in progress. So the public education aspect through SNAP and through disaster preparedness is kind of on a halt right now, on a hold until they can resolve some issues. And in during that hold process, they are taking that opportunity to update and revise the materials.
Yeah.
Good.
We kind of have to take we have to take guidance from SPU, and we need them to evolve and get to a twin bucket system before OEM will be comfortable preaching that. And that just needs to happen behind the scenes.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on waste, debris, water? Okay, so I'm going to move on to everybody get a pencil and paper.
Oh, this is the test afterwards. We should have been taking notes.
This is the test. I just have to find it again. Man, oh man.
You're just gonna leave us in suspense, aren't you?
No, it's like I can't find anything today. I think I need my glasses checked. Okay. So we started on this topic last time, and so now it's doing the same thing. I'm getting this.
Yeah, we're blank screen.
There we go. I think what happens is when I'm in preview, it doesn't like it, and once I can get to, jeez, resume share.
Nope, not yet.
How about now?
Nope, not yet. Out of it.
Okay, so we're gonna just let me reopen it.
You know, it might be easier for us to pin your screen and then just have you hold a piece of paper up to your camera.
I know it. You know, what's frustrating is when I'm trying to do this, I can't troubleshoot and figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Mhm.
So let me put it into slideshow ahead of time.
Are you trying to share a presentation?
Yeah. But when it's in slideshow, I can't ever see the toolbar.
Does it
So,
have a bar?
okay.
Isn't it
Are
And
you
now I've
sharing a
lost the
presenter
toolbar.
view? Do you have one screen or two?
I have like 19 browsers open.
I mean, one monitor?
Yeah, just one monitor.
Okay. Are you trying to use PowerPoint?
Yep.
There it is.
Bingo.
Okay.
Yay.
But it doesn't work in presentation mode.
Well, now I'm going to put it in presentation mode and see what happens. Yay.
Okay, we see it now. Yeah.
Okay. So this all that business last deep dive about where do you go to find out who's in your neighborhood had two really important things. One is in just our general mission, you know, who's going to show up at your hub and can you help them? You know, if they are not speaking your language, if they are completely unprepared because they were in a demographic that you just knew they weren't going to have any money to store stuff, you know, how are you going to be able to help the people who live in your neighborhood? Who are those people? And then the other side effect of that, as we found, is when we do outreach, you know, if you're not talking to everybody in your neighborhood, then you haven't been able to help people get prepared. So again, if they don't speak your language and you're not inviting them to meetings because of that communication barrier, how can we remove those and do a better job when we have the ability? And when I say you, it is not necessarily you. You may have someone who said, oh, I really want to do social media for you. And you have to say, great, here's the social media that the Latinx population uses. Can you make sure you post on, you know, whatever that is? WhatsApp is actually the big one in South Park for communicating. So there's a lot of cultural and demographic stuff that we can incorporate with whoever is helping you at your hub do outreach or training or education or planning on showing up at the day of the disaster. So I put together, it's only 10 slides, so you know you won't get too bored. There are prizes at the end, and I believe everybody's neighborhood is in here at least once. And so what I did was I did the research and I asked multiple questions around those vulnerabilities that we know we might have out there. And I'm gonna do the first one kind of slow-mo. So I'm giving you 4 neighborhoods and put them in the order of who has the most people over 85 years old. And you can play this one of 2 ways. Jeez. You can do it one of 2 ways. One is just pick who you think is the top one. I'll give a prize for whoever has the most top guesses. Or if you actually want to try and put them in order, you know, I'll give the award for the one who has the most of the correct of those. So who has the most people over 85, which implies that you're going to have a lot of people who are extremely vulnerable because of the health position. And what I'll do is I'll give you guys about 15 seconds on each one of these. I should have brought the little Jeopardy. Do, 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 do. Okay, so ready for the answer?
Who goes first?
Broadview. 551 people. Now this is by census tract, so it's not quite like, you know, the other set of demographics, which were community reporting areas, which are really closely aligned with neighborhoods. So this is about half a Broadview, half a Holler Lake, actually, but still.
That's Carl's neighborhood, right?
That's my neighborhood. There are, keep in mind, there's several very large senior facilities. Foss Home, Ida Culver House are huge with old people. And as it extends towards Holler Lake, you've got Seattle Housing Authority facilities along 130th. So yeah, and all the single family residents are old people.
Yep. So Carl is, you know, like Carl is doing the what's in my neighborhood, he knows, right? So then the next question is, well, we better go do outreach to those old people. Yeah. So, So
It's
this is
not
how it
easy
kind of
to-
works.
It's not easy to get into, I mean, outside of COVID, I mean, just before COVID, BC, it still was very challenging to try to reach out to any of the major elder care facilities.
Yeah, and I mean, that is something that we can start either strategizing on or go ask the Office of Emergency Management with, because if you know you got 551 85-year-olds and older, it's like, holy crap, you know, let's figure this out. And a couple of us have done presentations to, I did one at where a lot of the retired UW people go live, you know, they were actually, the staff was interested in getting the education out. The audience, 85 and over, slept through a lot of it, you know, so it just tells us we're going to have some really challenges in a response. Okay, the next one. Who has the most people over 65 living alone? So not even any family to depend on.
Do you want us to just call out the answers?
No, I want you to write them because
Okay.
because you get prizes. But I'm only going to give you 10 seconds. Okay. So this was Holly Lake and Broadview, you know, same kind of dynamic as it were. Not only are a ton of 85s, but there's a ton of 65 to 85. Okay. And so also I was kind of surprised that Cedar Park and Meadowbrook were so high too. Who has the most people reporting that they have one or more disability? And again, if you can put them in order, because like I said, everybody should be in here somewhere. So the answer is, look at that number. Over 1,000 people reporting one or more disabilities. Now that could be hearing, you know, could be mobility. Again, you have the seniors. So, you know, you can just see the compounding going on here.
Where's Highland Park? Where's Highland Park?
Highland Park is, it's just south of me here in West Seattle.
Okay, thank you.
I was surprised at Northgate Maple Leaf.
They've got some pretty good sized facilities up there.
Yeah. All right. Now we're into some community reporting areas. And so these are more economic and language based. So by percentage, I'm going to move the screen, who has the greatest number of people under 18? So these might be distressed children. They might be people you can use to respond.
My point.
Ready? Yep, High Point was right. We have a lot of immigrant families, large immigrant families, lots of small kids. And you know, there's other characteristics, but this was really fun to actually go, Laurelhurst has young kids? You know, I had to peg them for the old folk people. Sorry, Louise. And then there is a gap. I wanted to make sure Lakewood Seward Park got in here somewhere. They kind of floated in the middle of everything, but they're a young up and coming youth area too. Okay, so there was a discussion last time about who has owner occupied housing, which means people are in single family neighborhoods versus who has high renter. So we'll start with who has the most owner occupied housing.
Magnolia.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Well, Arbor Heights, which is in West Seattle, and it's the furthest south neighborhood in West Seattle. And I would have never thought of that until I realized that I don't think they have a single parcel zone multifamily. It's all single family.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah, anything that's not single family is probably rented houses. So that was just kind of illuminating, you know, it's like, I didn't even think about it that way. And also it was interesting because I wouldn't have expected Rainier Beach to be as high single family either. So then the next question is the obvious reverse.
Yeah, Capitol Hill. Ah, there's Ballard.
Yeah, I know. Those people in Ballard are probably going, no, 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 it's us now.
Well, it might be the university. They do a lot for the students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Short term.
Nope.
Really?
So
Right? Where?
Pioneer Square and the International District. It's the International District, a very high rental.
Oh, yeah.
And Pioneer Square is nothing but, there's not a single family house practically.
Yeah, downtown.
Yeah, some condos, but it's an awful lot of rental.
Yeah,
And
well,
then the university would have been a.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we're going to do some economics. And this is your indicators of like, who's not going to have money to put aside stuff.
Capitol Hill.
Really?
Isn't this an interesting assortment? This would not have been the first four I would have thought of, but this is
Definitely
the
not Queen Anne.
first four.
I think Northgate, Maple Leaf.
Maybe Northgate?
Yeah, my guess.
Capitol Hill.
Capitol Hill.
Now I did this slide. I did two questions on the same slide because there's an interesting observation. So who has the most households with incomes greater than 200,000?
Queen Anne.
See, we're all talking in our stereotypes here.
Yep. Local knowledge.
Yeah. And
Or
the
what we
answer
think,
is,
well, what we think we know.
yeah. Ravenna.
Hmm.
Why, Matt? Is it like, what?
I don't know.
And that is literally the top of the chart.
That's
And-
a
Hold it,
university.
hold it.
Your-
You see
your
Queen
numbers-
Anne's got
Oh, shoot.
3,752.
Yeah, you know what? I believe, yeah, the numbers are right. It should have been Queen Anne at the top. I don't know what I did there.
Oh, I see.
Jeez.
Yeah,
All
Queen
right.
Anne.
Right. That's your neighborhood, Mark.
That's right.
That,
We're number 2.
but so this is what surprises me. Queen Anne comes in top with the least income and top with the most income. So there's a
Well,
huge diversity.
We have a couple of extremes. We have North Queen Anne, which is around the college. There's a lot of rentals down there.
Mhm.
And then we have South Queen Anne, which is around Seattle Center, and we have a lot of rentals down there.
Yep.
So, and then on top of the hill, it's, well, you know how that
All the
typically.
rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the response in Queen Anne is going to be just like very interesting. I mean, you're going to have a lot of students who are like probably the most flexible, because they live around the universities who can help around the hub more. But you have people who are going to have houses with tons of stuff in that can help everybody else, so. And then that same observation around Cascade Eastlake, they ended up in the top for both less income and most income.
Hmm.
And then I think this is our last economic one. By percentage, who has the most people where the rent is more than 35% of their income? And 35% is kind of the indicator of you're paying so much to rent, you don't have enough for regular food and other stuff.
Right.
I think university.
Yep.
Oh. Yep. Good guess.
Yeah, because it's students paying off their student loan.
Yeah. And I happen to know it's expensive, but
Yeah, eating top ramen forever. And then Highland Park again. So Highland Park, South Park, and Rainier Beach, which we've all known were going to be those really distressed areas.
Mhm.
And then who has the highest density? Number of people per acre.
Pioneer Square.
Pioneer Square?
Belltown.
I'd say Capitol Hill.
Yeah, they're all right in there, aren't they?
Yep.
So it is Belltown, poor Steve. And Capitol Hill, Pioneer Square. And then there's a big drop off, Pioneer Square, Cascade Eastlake. And then Cheryl, I knew you'd be in, so I put you in there just so you could sort of see. You've got about a quarter of what Steve's got to deal with people-wise. So every time.
Downtown. Let me just tell you though, downtown Ballard, you say downtown Ballard these days, it is much more dense than you might remember.
Yeah, there's a gap. There's a many neighborhoods in between Cascade and East Lake, you know, and Ballard is in there, but it wasn't one of the top 4 or 5.
Right.
And this is our last question. Who has the most percentage of people who speak English less than well, which generally means they don't speak enough English. They call it English with limited proficiency.
Oh,
International District.
Judkins Park.
or South Beacon.
Either Pioneer Square or Rainier Beach, I think.
South Beacon or Rainier Beach.
And the
Yeah,
answer
either.
is Beacon.
Yeah.
Beacon and Beacon, South Beacon. So, you know, that's, and the hub captains there pretty much know, yes, language, and then you just have to figure out which is the predominant languages you have to be prepared for. So one piece of good news, Susan Sanders isn't on, but we actually had a meeting with El Centro de la Raza. So they've started to get engaged. And so we, you know, they're talking about, you know, how can they start this up with their population, especially because they've got residential housing that they now administer. So, you know, it's what's the languages, what's the culture, can you reach them, can you help them? And then this was just the last interesting factoid. In all of Seattle, how many neighborhoods do you think that there are that have less than, it's hidden, but I think it's less than 2% or less than 100 people who speak English less than well? 6, 7, 2, 5, 34?
No
And
clue.
where would they be?
10.
2. Montlake, which was like, wow, that's the first time I saw Montlake come up on anything. So that means all the rest of us have the potential at our hub to have more than 100 people showing up who don't speak a language or don't speak English.
Wow.
So in September, we're going to be doing, Ann and I are doing one more P-patch presentation, and it's specifically for the P-patches who have less than, or English limited proficiency gardeners. And we're going to be doing a program with interpreters. So Ann and I were trying to, you know, like figure out how we're going to get ready for this. And we got an offer to do a, you know, we're going to practice it virtually. We hope we can do it in person, but get to practice with an interpreter so we can get used to how slowly do you speak? How do you deal with questions? You know, how long do you have to pause? You know, how do you read what's going on? And so we were telling them that we were, you know, looking at our demographics, and everybody was starting to come to the realization that, you know, like we need to do some better techniques in our outreach. And they said, well, you know, if you want to have all your hub captains practice, we'd be glad to come and, you know, let you practice with us. So in September, during our deep dive, we'll have someone on who can act as an interpreter for us so that you can actually try it out, you know, before you actually have to go live for the first time, you know, just, you know, make up 2 slides you want to present and then do it. So that's what the September deep dive will be.
Cindy,
So,
are these city provided interpreters or what?
nope, this is Julie Bryant, who is the P-patch coordinator. She is going to go get some friends, and she does interpretation too. But when I've been talking to Matt about, you know, we're really doing intentional thinking about how, you know, in particular, me in West Seattle, I've got to do better at some of my languages. And could I use the city's CSAs when I'm doing hub presentations in South Park, for example? And so that's under consideration.
Yeah, I think they primarily do their own presenting as opposed to interpreting, but they can interpret.
Yeah, I don't think Matt's ready to commit that they're going to let CSAs present about the hub. So we'll be in that business forever.
Right, but as interpreters, if you can get an established group of interpreters so that you can work with them over, you know, in advance or over time, then that makes it a whole lot easier, right? Many years ago, I did interpreting in the military through interpreters, and you learn to work with an interpreter, and you can do a very good presentation, but not the very first time or with a brand new person. It takes a little time and a little practice.
Yep. She
I've
had
been
us
working with a gentleman in my neighborhood that's Turkish and has very limited English skills. And we have actually, I mean, we've been working through the phone-based, cell phone-based interpreting programs. And, you know, you could do like words and very simple phrases, but barring having somebody with multilingual skills around, it's worth loading a number of different languages into your phone on those things. They're standalone, and it's better than nothing.
Yeah. For teaching you guys and me how to do this, I've been collecting some of the tips, and one of the things Julie had me do for our typical hub presentation is create a vocabulary for the interpreters, because they look at the presentations ahead of time and they make sure they're familiar with the lingo, because hub doesn't mean anything to just your average person off the street unless you explain it. And then some of the emergency management kind of specific words, like auxiliary communication service and ham radio. I mean, you have to actually explain that to people who don't have any context for it. So it's a really good exercise to make your vocabulary, and it makes you aware of, the first basic rule, which is use simple English to explain what you're trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have prizes. I have a lovely Red Cross clip-on self-powered flashlight. I have yet another copy of RIP Full 9.0, which you can pass on to someone else, but it's signed by Sandy Doughton. And I have a combo of a kerchief with self-help tips and disaster playing cards, if anybody wants to claim them. So who had, all 10 of those right, where you picked the first one? Anybody? What?
I think that was a big no.
Oh, okay. How about 8? 7? 5? Oh, Carl has 4. Yeah, that's a good idea. Just put your fingers up. So Carl had 4. Okay, Carl, what do you want?
Somebody's got to have done better than that.
That's why we did it. I had all those ringers in there. It was just like, there's no way anybody was going to get all 10. All right. Did anybody get all the rest of them? Probably everybody stopped after 1. So that was fun. Thank you for humoring me, and I'll owe you something someday, Carl. I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
All right.
How many people stop to look up their own neighborhood in the census data?
Louise,
Yeah, I looked up
Cheryl.
mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the links.
I learned a lot.
The deep dive thing, and it's hard. I mean, I thank God I had those links, because I was going like, where did I get the economic stuff from? So thank God I made that presentation, because that helped me go back and find this stuff too. So
Yeah.
it was really interesting. So, all right, I'm going to let you go. And it was just slightly over an hour. It was actually only an hour if we take out all the technical time for problems. So.
Oh, I just want to say one last thing, jumping back onto the water sewer stuff. I had, one of the sanitation methods is boiling water. And I would say a lot of people, barring having either electricity or, gas, if those aren't available, are going to be using their little camp stoves. That run off of 1-pound cylinders. And I'm going to make an announcement through the hubcaps messaging to get a number of people that have those kind of stoves to run a test and see just how many like 1-gallon pots they can boil with one of those, so that we'll have some kind of information to deal with how that works.
I think that's such a great idea, because that's what people remember when we talk to them. It's like, hey, we did an experiment, and if you think you're going to boil your water for 20 days, you need this much propane. So
yeah.
Yep.
I just got back from my cabin at Lake Wenatchee, and I boil all my water over there. So and I do cheat, and I have a stove, but you kind of get into how long do I do it, and I talked to a good friend of mine, is the retired water director for SPU, and he said, well, somewhere between 1 minute and 10 minutes. So I think
Sounds long enough.
So I think somewhat over a minute's probably okay. But yeah, you're right on how much gas capacity. That'll be a kind of a fun experiment to do.
Yeah.
Thanks
I
for
think
great
just
meeting.
bringing it to a boil does most of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the
Kills
at
the
least
bacteria.
commonly
That's what
discussed.
Boil 1 minute
1
is the
minute is, yeah.
guidance.
Those cryptos, those bacterias, those virals, but it doesn't kill oil.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when I'm backcountry camping, we typically just bring it to a boil and then
Yep.
let it cool
That's what I do too.
because we're carrying a limited amount of fuel. But I do
Yeah.
have a jet boil, so I can say that will boil a lot of water because it doesn't waste much heat.
That's
Quite
great.
Thank you, Cindy. Great meeting.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Cindy.
All right. Good night.
All right. Thanks.